your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition with Jeanette Roche.
Hello, thanks for joining us for a look back at Alberta this week. A Calgary police officer who was found guilty of assault causing bodily harm in a 2017 arrest has been fired. Constable Alex Dunn was found guilty in 2020 for assaulting Dahlia Coffey, a woman who had been arrested for allegedly breaking her curfew. Dunn had brought Coffey, who was handcuffed to the police station in 2017, and a security camera inside the building captured him throwing her to the ground. A court hearing earlier this year said Coffey was injured when her face struck the floor. Calgary police says Dunn is out of a job following a disciplinary hearing in August. A company that runs a commercial kitchen at the center of the E. coli outbreaks at Calgary's daycares has entered a not guilty plea to municipal bylaw charges. The City of Calgary charged Fueling Minds Incorporated and its two directors in September with serving food at childcare centers in the city without a food services business license. They faced 12 charges and fines of up to $120,000. There were around 446 E. coli cases connected to the outbreak, which lasted 8 weeks. 39 children and 1 adult were hospitalized. A trial date has been set for September 6th of next year. The head of the Alberta Sexual Assault Center at the University of Alberta has been fired. Samantha Pearson, who signed an open letter denying women were raped during the Hamas attacks October 7th in Gaza, was officially let go from her position. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith was engaged in the university's decision. The Jewish Federation of Edmonton wrote in a social media post, quote, "Shouldn't a sexual assault center believe all victims and not just the non-Jewish ones?" In a statement, University President Bill Flanagan said, quote, "The University of Alberta stands firmly and unequivocally against discrimination and hatred on the basis of religion, race, ethnicity, and other protected categories." With Alberta's United Conservative Party's pension telephone town halls now complete, the official opposition took opportunity to point out what was not addressed during them. Alberta NDP House Leader Christina Gray says for Albertans wanting to protect their Canada pension plan, it appears this may have been the only chance to have their say, something she says is, quote, "shameful."
These telephone town halls have been pre-screened. Only a handful of callers have gotten through on each one of them. And some of the people lucky enough to get through on the line and ask their questions were even yelled at by Jim Dinning, the government's appointed head of this project to gamble away Albertans' pensions. And the feedback from Albertans on the phone hasn't exactly been positive either. As one caller named Doug from Fort McMurray put it, "I'm not going to mince words. I wholly disagree with this." Deb from Calgary said what so many Albertans are thinking when it comes to the CPP, quote, "I'm in favor of staying with the Canada Pension Plan because it works, because it's consistent, because it's reliable, because it's already built. Now the government today will likely say that there's still a survey up online about pensions. But it fails to even ask the question, do you want to leave the Canada Pension Plan?"
According to Alberta's Affordability and Utilities Minister Nathan Neudorf, Alberta pulling out of the Canada Pension Plan is not a unilateral decision of the government. He says it's still up to Albertans.
We did our work to show what we think the calculations would be. I know there's criticism of that, but we've asked the federal government to come to the table with what they think those numbers should be. And once we have all that information, again, we want to make sure Albertans have all the information. And if they direct us to go towards a referendum, we will do that. And if they say not to, then we'll do that. We're here to serve Albertans, and we think that they should know their options.
With the ongoing doctor shortage in Alberta, the government announced that it's expanding opportunities for nurse practitioners in the province. They will soon be able to open their own clinics, take on patients, and offer services based on their scope of practice, training, and expertise. Premier Danielle Smith says nurse practitioners can provide around 80% of the medical services a family doctor provides, and this will be reflected in the compensation they receive. Funding will also be made available to help recruit the nurse practitioners.
We're also providing a grant to the Nurse Practitioner Association of Alberta for $2 million over 3 years. This investment will help to recruit and prepare nurse practitioners as they take on more responsibilities, and it will support them as they move to independent practice and take on patients. Nurse practitioners are highly skilled primary care providers with advanced training. They can assess patients, provide diagnosis and treatment, order tests, and prescribe medications. They are a key part of the solution to ease pressure on the primary care providers. And I do want to be clear, Alberta's government is pulling out all the stops to stabilize and strengthen and improve Alberta's primary healthcare system.
Still to come, the province's plan to improve internet connectivity in rural areas. Stay with us. Welcome back. The province announced a new agreement with Elon Musk's company, Starlink, to help provide internet to many rural Albertans. Legislative reporter and the Alberta correspondent with the National Post, Tyler Dawson, chats with Hal Roberts about that, plus a potential motion that, if passed, could have Alberta back in court fighting the carbon tax. Take a look.
A recent motion by an Airdrie MLA could be up for debate at the legislature, and it involves the carbon tax?
The carbon tax, the gift that keeps on giving for the UCP. So this has to do with the exemption that was given for home heating oil in Atlantic Canada. Basically, the carbon tax will no longer be collected on home heating oil in those provinces. This was offered by the Liberals a couple of weeks ago now. And it's been really controversial, of course, all the other premiers saying, look, well, if you're going to take it off home heating oil, you should take it off natural gas, propane, whatever. But the other side of this is when Alberta went to the Supreme Court to get a reference on whether or not the carbon tax was constitutional, one of the things that the government and many people felt was a takeaway of that case was that the carbon tax needed to be applied equitably across the entire country. And so they're basically saying, look, it's no longer applied equitably. Does that mean that the courts should take another look at it? Does that change the material circumstances on the ground because of this policy decision made by the Liberals? Does that change, the constitutionality of the carbon tax? So Angela Pitt is asking for a motion to send another reference case to the Alberta Court of Appeal to sort of answer that question. Now, it's a bit of an odd situation because courts when things change, they don't, go, oh, shoot, we should take another look at that. That's just not how the courts work. So there is the possibility that the motion gets debated, the motion passes, and then the Court of Appeal says, nah, the Supreme Court ruled on this just 2 years ago. We're not going to go through that process again. So that's certainly a possibility. But they may say yes, and we might get another answer on it. And I mean, I think it's a tough road for the UCP if they go that way again. There have always been exemptions to the carbon tax. Farmers, for example, with purple gas are exempted from the carbon tax. So complicated legal situation probably, but frankly, pretty good politics at this moment for the UCP and any other premier who's got people who are paying the carbon tax on their home heating as we go into winter.
With the NDP, Tyler, they've introduced a bill that would have school boards report class sizes and composition to the education minister. Is this because class sizes are getting to be too big, over 30 students per teacher?
Well, that's what they're saying. Yeah, they're saying that, class sizes are 30 plus kids per classroom, which is, as an aside, is kind of funny. I went to school in the 90s and 2000s, and I think that's all, in my mind, that's what all class sizes were. But I guess that was the Klein years and all that. So, but yeah, there used to be reporting on this. The government used to report each year sort of average class sizes and things like that. And I believe that was stopped in 2019. And so they're basically just calling on the government to go back to the system that they used to have, so that we know what class sizes look like. And teachers, I guess, are telling the NDP that they've got, complicated classroom situations. You have people with widely varying educational levels, especially in sort of elementary school, and you also have lots of special needs kids who may or may not be getting the support they need through educational assistance and things like that. So the NDP basically just says, look, this is about transparency. We want to know what's going on in classrooms. Of course, there's the political advantage for them as well, because then they can say, look, the UCP is neglecting the education system or whatever. So would be nice to have those numbers, I suppose. I'm sure parents would be interested in it, but there's certainly a very obviously political agenda for the New Democrats there as well.
Premier Daniel Smith and the UCP have inked a deal with Elon Musk's satellite internet company, Starlink, Tyler, and it offers some good news for many in rural Alberta.
Yeah, and down in your neck of the woods as well. I think it's Warner County, Cardston, and 40 Mile County is the sort of region, I guess, where people can apply to get Starlink internet. The government, I think, is putting about $1,000 towards each resident and business that signs up for this. And so Danielle Smith she's a fan of Elon Musk. She has been for a long time, and so it kind of makes sense that she would be looking to this satellite internet network to solve some of the rural connectivity issues in the province. So, this has been an objective of provincial and federal governments for a long time to try and get better internet in rural areas. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this pilot project works, and if it ends up being in a more sort of expanded relationship with Starlink in the future.
Up next, we speak with Alberta's Affordability and Utilities Minister as many Albertans face the economic challenges of inflation and escalating utility costs. Stay tuned for the details right after this quick break.
We think renewables are a big part of the future. We just need to be able to accommodate their unique characteristics, particularly intermittency, to make sure that we can stabilize the price of electricity for every Albertan.
Well, the pause on the provincial gas tax is scheduled to conclude at the end of next month. It would make life much more expensive for Albertans. We asked Alberta's Affordability and Utilities Minister Nathan Neudorf if government officials have talked about extending the pause on the provincial gas tax beyond the end of the year. Here he is with BCN's Hal Roberts.
I think we would be more concerned about the inflationary pressures that it's going to add all across the country. Affordability is one of our top concerns for all Albertans, and we want to make sure that new affordable housing initiatives are steps in the right direction without adding a whole lot more challenges on top of that. And one of we think the greatest missed opportunities by the federal government was to expand their tax relief on the carbon tax to way more households, treating all Canadians equally. We're very happy for Eastern and the Maritime provinces that they got relief from that carbon tax. But we think Albertans and Saskatchewan, Manitoba, BC, we all have Canadians that need a little bit of relief from that taxation as well. And we would have preferred to see them move in that direction.
How much is that carbon tax really impacting our farmers? As you know, we live in a solid agricultural community here. A lot of the farmers want to see the carbon tax break on propane, natural gas, a lot of the gases they use to dry their grains.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just reading recently in the Calgary Herald, a Lethbridge professor talking about that so many of those grain dryers and other facilities that farmers and ranchers use all the time to make sure that we have the highest quality food in the world to be able to get to market. They're really feeling the impact of that, but it doesn't stop there. It really is impacting our schools, our hospitals, our post-secondary institutions. All of these other levels of great needed services are really feeling the hit.
Nathan, the president of the Rural Municipalities of Alberta says the dialogue we're having right now about renewables should have taken place about 8 years ago. Paul McLaughlin says that's when the NDP pushed through their early exit from coal. Your thoughts?
Well, he is exactly correct. This is exactly what happened. When you change the base characteristics of your entire utility grid, you need to understand how that's going to impact the market. They didn't do that. They didn't have those conversations. We think renewables are a big part of the future. We just need to be able to accommodate their unique characteristics, particularly intermittency, to make sure that we can stabilize the price of electricity for every Albertan. That's the work that we're doing. That's the work that we've asked the Alberta Utilities Commission to look into, as well as the Alberta Electric Systems Operator, to make sure that our market is structured in a way that we can have reliable, dependable, and affordable electricity for all of our constituents.
Your party suspended the provincial tax on gasoline, but only until the end of this year. That's just around the corner. Has there been any talk of potentially extending it, especially with the high cost of living right now and inflation still over 3%? Many Albertans can't afford to take the hit in the new year.
We are looking at every aspect of affordability right now, and particularly with the Minister of Finance, we're looking at all of those things. We are making sure that we're taking fiscal responsibility for the areas that we can. Again, earlier conversation about inflation. We want to make sure that Alberta invests appropriately where we can to help fill those needs, but not overspend so that we are a driving force increasing that. we introduced Bill 1 to reduce the personal income tax. We are very, very conscious and focused on that. In terms of the fuel tax, we are looking at availability and how that can benefit Albertans. Again, we're working through the entire spectrum of affordability options and how our government can help meet those needs for Albertans.
I wanted to get your thoughts on the potential of an Alberta pension plan and Alberta pulling out of the CPP. You know, Premier Daniel Smith says more studying has to be done. We'll have to see a referendum before we move forward. What are your thoughts about a potential APP?
Well, I think right now we are at the stage where we want to inform Albertans about the options of the study that we commissioned a number of years ago. We did not pick a conservative-based entity to do this study. We picked Morneau Chappelle, the company that was set up by the federal Liberal MP, Bill Morneau, who was a finance minister for Canada for a number of years. We did our work to show what we think the calculations would be. I know there's criticism of that, but we've asked the federal government to come to the table with what they think those numbers should be. And once we have all that information, again, we want to make sure Albertans have all the information. And if they direct us to go towards a referendum, we will do that. And if they say not to, then we'll do that. We're here to serve Albertans, and we think that they should know their options and how much they have contributed to Canada and Canada's well-being. And I look forward to hearing back from Albertans on this issue.
As November comes to an end, so does the extra facial hair. We hear from a Movember participant advocating for men's health. Stay tuned. That's right after the break. Welcome back. The month of November is wrapping up, but during the past few weeks, you may have noticed the men in your life becoming a bit more hairy. But the extra facial hair might not have been because their razors were broken. Instead, it's been a fun reminder about a very serious subject. Up next, Naveen Day speaks with Shane DeMerchant about how Movember has helped raise awareness of men's health issues like prostate and testicular cancers and even mental health.
Yeah, one of the first questions that people always ask me is how the mustache became synonymous with the men's health movement. I mentioned this is the 17th annual Movember campaign in Canada. The origins of Movember actually go back 20 years, so 2 decades, starting not in Canada, but in Melbourne, Australia, with a couple of friends sitting around on a Sunday afternoon, having some lunch and some drinks and talking not about men's health necessarily, but men's fashion and the fact that the mustache hadn't really become fashionable yet. I think they were like me, children of the 80s, and had dads growing up watching Magnum PI and Burt Reynolds and growing a mustache at the time. So they said, hey, let's try to bring the mustache back this month. So they spent the month of November growing a mustache, recruited some of their friends to do it with them. And the one thing they all realized in that first year, that first month formerly known as November, was that no matter where they went, people commented on the mustache. So whether it was hanging out with friends or family or at work, everyone asked them what the deal with the mustache was. So they knew they'd hit on the power of the mustache to create conversations. They said, let's give ourselves an excuse to do this next year, but put some greater meaning behind it. Started to raise some funds for men's mental health in that first year, specifically prostate cancer in the first year. They realized that at the time, the rates of prostate cancer in men were very similar to the rates of breast cancer in women. Right now, 1 in 8 men in Canada will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in their lifetime. So started to raise not just the funds, but awareness and fastest history of lesson of all time that shoots us forward 20 years, where we've had more than 5 million people globally participate in the Movember campaign in one way or another across 20 plus countries around the globe. So a lot of really, really incredible work that's been inspired by a jokey conversation in Melbourne 20 years ago.
That's just amazing how it evolved into something so amazing and big in such a small amount of time. Now, Movember just isn't a guy thing. How can women actively participate and contribute to Movember's campaigns and awareness initiatives?
Exactly. So I always joke that maybe unsurprisingly, some of our best supporters are women, whether that's guys maybe not being the most most organized or relying on the women of their lives to get some initiatives off the ground. But I mentioned the 4 different ways to register. If a mustache isn't your thing, if you can't grow a mustache, anyone can register to host an event. Anyone can register to stay active this month. I think every single one of us has a man in our life that we care about, that we want to keep around as long as possible. We're losing way too many men too early for a lot of preventable reasons. So if we can get men to be a little bit more proactive with their own health, to check in with their doctor to see what's wrong, to figure out what it means for them to be in the self-care space, in the wellness space, in the proactive space when it comes to their own health, and we all have a role to play there. We encourage anyone to get involved with those conversations this month.
Do you have some stats to share on prostate cancer and maybe also on men's mental health and suicide?
Yeah, so on the mental health side of things, unfortunately in Canada, this is a stat that is pretty consistent across most countries. 3 out of 4 people who die by suicide are men. Suicide's the second leading cause of death in young men and boys between the ages of 15 and 44 in Canada. So we're losing way too many men too early. We're allowing boys and men to get to a point of crisis. And then when they are at that point of crisis, we haven't prepped them with the literacy, we haven't prepped them with the tools, we haven't prepped them with a knowledge of what support is out there once they get to that point. So our mission at Movember is to work upstream and keep boys mentally healthy as much as we can and keep them from getting that point of crisis to that point of crisis. But when they do, we want to make sure that they're comfortable reaching out for help. They know who to reach out to help for, and they've had the conversations before they get there so that they know what's available to them. And like I said, even for my own son, once they get to a point where they're struggling, they recognize that not as a sign of weakness, but say, hey, this is a point of strength for me to know when to reach out to someone else for help.
Well, we hope you have fun shaving off all that hair now that Movember is almost over. Or maybe you want to grow it out like Santa Claus, because Christmas is just around the corner and the community is vibrating with festive initiatives, including the vibrant glow of Christmas trees. After the break, we speak with organizers about their festive events. Don't go away. Welcome back. One of my favorite parts about Christmas is the lights. And wait till you see this. An interactive event called Glow opened its doors to the public on Thursday. Media were invited to the Agri-Food Hub and Trade Center in Lethbridge on Wednesday night, that is, to take a sneak peek. And Bridge City News was there to take in all the vibrant lights and colors. Lethbridge and District Exhibition CEO Mike Workington says the display is a first for Lethbridge.
Look, you can see behind me, it really is spectacular, and it's got our team all in the holiday spirit for the past week as they've been setting it up. This is Glow Around the World. There are 6 countries: People's Republic of China, France, Mexico, the Netherlands, presented by Westco Construction, India, and the United Kingdom. Those are the 6 countries. We've got some other special announcements happening later this week or next week that will tie in to Glow Gardens and some of the other festive celebrations going on around the community.
Well, that's just gorgeous. That Christmas light show runs Thursdays through Sundays from now right through New Year's Eve. So lovely. And speaking of lights, it certainly felt like Christmas at the NMAX Center in Lethbridge earlier this week, where the 29th annual Christmas Tree Festival and auction took place. There were 22 trees on display to be auctioned off, including a very popular Grinch tree right there. All money raised from the auction goes to support the Chinook Regional Hospital Foundation.
All the money will stay here in Lethbridge at the Chinook Regional Hospital. The foundation supports just the city here, and we put this towards the greatest needs of the hospital, so whatever is deemed the priority by the administrators and what we need at the time. Last year we had $170,000. We are hoping to surpass it this year. Every year the hospital has more needs, the community has more needs, and we're just trying to support what we can.
Well, this holiday season is not only looking to be bright with lights, but also full of holiday cheer, particularly for kids who might not otherwise have a great Christmas this year. And it's all thanks to the generosity of one Alberta home builder who is doing its part to give back to the community. BCN's Naveen Day has that story.
so fun you're going to this. When you just get to do it, eh? It's so fun.
The staff from Avonlea Homes had one of their childhood dreams fulfilled Thursday morning to go on a toy store shopping spree. Although the toys weren't for themselves, Avonlea Homes raised more than $20,000 for the Angel Tree Christmas campaign, and it was time to fill the carts with gifts for underprivileged children. Ron Teislow with Avonlea Homes says his organization really wanted to make an impact this year.
Our goal here on our first shop is we'll be shopping for approximately 520 toys. Then we'll do a second shop and we'll do another 500 toys. So our goal this year will be 1,000 toys for the Angel Tree program.
Teislow adds it's been a tough year for the home building industry here in our region.
Every sale is a tough sale, so the trades feel that. And the entire landscape of house building has changed in Lethbridge especially.
But he says hard times are no excuse to limit your compassion.
It's sad to be here in the fact that I wish we didn't have to and everything was a lot better in the world that we live in, but it's not, so we decided we're not going to sit on the sidelines, and we really hadn't been because last year we donated over 625 toys.
Avonlea Homes is the presenting sponsor for the 2023 Angel Tree Christmas campaign, which is in its 31st year.
Well, the Green and Yellow Group is gearing up for its annual Family Christmas Initiative. Over the past 8 years, the organization has been asking the community to nominate a family or individual who needs a bit of extra help, support, or love over the Christmas season. This year, the nonprofit has chosen 8 recipients to get a special visit by their volunteer Santa Claus, who will deliver gifts, food, and personal items, which have been donated by the community.
Ho, ho, ho!
Green and Yellow Group is approaching families that have gone through either hardships or over the last 3 years through this pandemic. A lot of people have been stressed out, families split, jobs lost. There's a myriad of reasons of why we're reaching out, and that's our whole mission, is to take our gifts and what you give us and deliver them and spoil families with Christmas dinner, a Christmas wish list. So what we do is we reach out and to these families that got nominated and ask them what they want for their children, what they want for their wives, what they want for their grandmas, and their wish list for their dinner. And we'll spoil them whatever they want for their food. With the help of Southern Alberta, we make that happen, and this is the 8th year that we're doing that. And the responses we've got from the families in the past years are phenomenal. The children's, it changes their lives.
They get really excited. Some of them want to come sit on your lap and take pictures with you and everything like that. So it's very heartwarming, and it's nice to see, that's for sure.
Well, after the break, an unexpected pregnancy can be scary, but there is support available. More about that after the break.